Kale stepped cautiously into the vast hall of the alien palace. The air was heavy with the scent of unknown metals and something sweet, almost like burning flowers. The walls shimmered with colors that shifted as if alive, reflecting the light from floating orbs above. His boots echoed softly against the polished floor, each step carrying him closer to the throne where the alien queen waited. He had traveled across galaxies to return the sword, an ancient relic that no human had ever touched, and now the moment of truth had arrived. The sword lay on a pedestal, its hilt glinting in the alien light. It was longer than any weapon Kale had seen, with runes carved deep into the blade that seemed to hum with power. Alien warriors, clad in armor that resembled the scales of enormous beasts, surrounded the throne, their eyes fixed on him with suspicion. He could feel their unease, their disbelief that a human had dared step so far into their world, into the heart of their power. Kale inhaled slowly. He had prepared for every possible outcome, every diplomatic gesture, every chance of failure. But nothing could have prepared him for the way the sword reacted when he reached out to touch it. The moment his fingers brushed the hilt, a sharp heat shot through his hand. He flinched but did not pull away. Pain rippled through his arm, but there was no injury, just the strange sensation of energy connecting him to the blade. His vision blurred for a second, and then he saw it, the runes glowing brighter, responding to his presence. The sword recognized him, and so did the warriors. A wave of fear rippled through the hall. The alien guards stiffened, their eyes wide, mouths opening slightly as if unsure how to react. Kale felt a thrill run through him. This was what he had hoped for. Humans were underestimated everywhere, even here, on a planet where humans had never set foot before. The queen entered then, gliding across the floor with a presence that made the air itself seem to bend. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, her eyes deep pools of light that could pierce through the bravest of hearts. She stopped a few steps from the sword and regarded Kale with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You dare touch my sword, human?" Her voice was soft but carried authority that resonated in every corner of the hall. Kale swallowed and bowed slightly. "I do not dare, your majesty. I only wish to return what was taken so long ago." His voice was calm, even as the sword's energy pulsed through his hand. The queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded subtly, and a ripple went through the surrounding warriors. "The sword has chosen to respond to you. That is rare," she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of rulership. "It has never bonded with a human before." Kale could not understand their language fully, but the tones of fear and awe were unmistakable. He straightened his back, meeting the gaze of the queen without flinching. He would not show weakness. Humans were not fragile. Humans survived in the harshest conditions, adapted in ways other species could not imagine. The queen took a step closer. "You hold a relic of great power. Many have tried and failed to master it, even among my own kind." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Tell me, human, what do you see in the blade?" "And I see that it trusts me now, even if I am human." Every species had its way of proving worth, and humans had a reputation for creativity and quick thinking, though few believed it. Kale welcomed the challenge. A platform rose from the floor, shimmering with energy. On it, a series of obstacles appeared, shifting walls, moving platforms, and symbols glowing with the same runes as the sword. The queen's voice echoed in his mind, though her lips did not move. "Prove your understanding of balance, timing, and thought. Only then will the sword's bond be complete." The walls shifted in sequences, platforms moved in timing that seemed random but had a hidden rhythm. He observed for a moment, then stepped forward. His movements were deliberate but swift, calculating each step as he dodged the shifting walls and leaped from one moving platform to another. The sword pulsed in his hand, guiding him subtly, offering a sense of rhythm. He felt the bond deepen, and with each successful maneuver, the alien onlookers gasped quietly, some leaning forward in disbelief. Kale reached the final platform where a small pedestal awaited him. He placed the sword upon it. A surge of energy shot through the hall, the runes along the blade blazing. The platform lowered and the warriors stepped back, their fear turning into astonishment. Kale had not only survived the trial, he had mastered it without harm. The queen's expression softened. "You have done what many of my own could not. The sword does not reject you. It has chosen its protector." Yet here he was, bonded to one of their greatest symbols of power, having earned respect through courage, wit, and calm under pressure. A murmur went through the hall. Some of the warriors approached cautiously, bowing slightly. Their fear remained, but it was now mixed with respect. Kale realized that humans were not just surviving in the galaxy, they could shape it if given the chance. The queen stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "You are different from others," she said softly. "Perhaps humans are not to be underestimated. There is a storm coming, one that will test both our people. If you wish to stand with me, human, your courage will be needed." He straightened his shoulders, meeting the gaze of the warriors without fear. He had crossed the first threshold. The sword had branded him, not in pain, but in destiny. And in that moment, the galaxy seemed a little smaller, a little more open to the resilience and ingenuity of a human. Kale could feel it in his bones. This was a place where humans had been underestimated, where their courage had been doubted. But now, standing in the throne room of the alien queen, with the sword bonded to his hand and the warriors watching him with awe, he knew that humans could surprise even the most powerful beings in the universe. And Kale, human and determined, would not let that surprise be forgotten. The hall was quiet now, but the tension lingered like smoke after a fire. Kale lowered his hand slowly from the sword, feeling the heat of the bond linger in his palm. The alien queen sat back upon her throne, her silver eyes reflecting the energy of the blade. Around her, the warriors whispered in low tones, still shaken by what they had witnessed. Some glanced at Kale with suspicion, others with awe, but all understood one thing: this human was not ordinary. "You have succeeded in the first trial," the queen said, her voice calm but commanding. "Yet success is not enough. Power is not granted merely by touching a weapon. You must prove your understanding, your wisdom, and your courage. Are you prepared to continue?" At first glance, it appeared chaotic, impossible to navigate. Kale studied it carefully. Every obstacle seemed to follow its own rhythm, some moving with precision, others appearing random. He noticed the subtle cues in the patterns, small glimmers of light, vibrations in the floor, and the soft hum of energy from the devices. The queen's voice filled the hall again. "This is not merely a test of strength. It is a test of thought, patience, and perception. Many of my warriors have failed here not because they lacked power, but because they could not understand the patterns. Do not rely solely on reflexes. Think, observe, adapt." It seemed to respond to his focus, guiding him subtly toward the rhythm of the challenge. The human mind had a unique advantage in situations that required improvisation and rapid learning, and Kale intended to use it fully. He stepped forward. The first platform shifted as he landed, tilting under his weight. He adjusted instantly, balancing and moving toward the next challenge. Alien observers murmured quietly. The movements were precise but also unpredictable. Kale anticipated them before they fully activated. The next obstacle was a wall embedded with glowing runes. As Kale approached, the runes lit up in patterns, then dimmed, requiring him to step through at precise moments. Timing and observation became crucial. Kale's training on Earth, navigating dangerous ruins and unpredictable terrains, served him well. He watched the subtle glow of the runes, memorized the sequence, and moved with fluid precision. One of the queen's warriors, a tall figure with scaled armor and a sharp blade, stepped forward. "He is not a trained warrior," the soldier whispered to a companion. "Yet he moves with foresight, as if he knows the traps before they act. It is unsettling." Some of them had trained for decades and still struggled with this trial. The queen's gaze remained fixed on him, unblinking. "Do not let your confidence blind you," she said. "The trial is not over until the final step is taken." If he touched the wrong one, the panels would reset the sequence, sending him back several steps. He studied the pattern, noticing that the light shifted in cycles, repeating after a precise interval. Using his human ability to adapt quickly, he memorized the timing and moved with patience, avoiding the resets entirely. A whisper traveled through the hall. "He calculates faster than any of us," said one warrior. Another shook his head. "But he is human. How can he endure such precision without error?" The shadows formed shapes that seemed almost alive, shifting in ways that mocked perception. The queen's voice echoed softly, almost like a whisper in his mind. "Do not fear what you do not understand. Humans can see patterns others miss. Trust yourself." The shadows shifted, but he adjusted, relying on instinct and observation rather than brute force. The platform beneath him remained steady. He was learning the rhythm of the challenge, blending perception with action. The warriors watching became increasingly tense. Their fear of the human had grown into something more complex, respect mixed with disbelief. Kale, a creature of a species they had always considered fragile, was succeeding where their best fighters had failed. Finally, he reached the pedestal. The sword pulsed once more, its energy wrapping around his hand and forearm, binding him gently to its power. The pedestal glowed, signaling completion. Kale exhaled, relief mingling with pride. He had passed the second trial, and he had done so not through raw strength, but through patience, observation, and human ingenuity. The queen stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You have performed admirably," she said. "The sword has not only accepted you, but it has also acknowledged your intellect and judgment. Many would falter, yet you have proven capable of understanding, patience, and courage. This is a rare quality." Some bowed slightly, others simply stared, as if trying to reconcile the impossible truth that a human could succeed where they had failed. "You are not like other humans," the queen continued. "Your species is often underestimated, yet you demonstrate qualities that even the strongest of my warriors lack: adaptability, foresight, and a calm mind under pressure. Tell me, human, how have you come to possess such skills? You speak wisely, yet there is more to leadership and protection than intelligence alone. Courage must be proven not only in challenge but in action. Soon you will face a test beyond this hall, a test that cannot be simulated by platforms or puzzles. Are you ready to face it? Whatever comes, I will meet it with clarity and resolve." He saw a mixture of respect, uncertainty, and lingering fear. Some of them had already begun to murmur among themselves, questioning their long-held beliefs about humans. Kale felt a quiet satisfaction. Even in this moment, humans had altered perception simply by showing what they were capable of. "You have proven skill, thought, and patience," the queen said. "Now we shall see if your courage matches them. The path ahead is not one you walk alone. You will face it alongside my warriors, but your ingenuity and spirit must guide you." Humans were not meant to be mere observers in the galaxy. They could shape events, influence outcomes, and earn respect through intelligence, courage, and action. The warriors stepped back, clearing a path as the queen rose gracefully. "Prepare yourselves," she said to both Kale and her soldiers. "We depart at once." The threat comes swiftly, and only those who combine skill, courage, and strategy will survive. Human, follow closely and show your strength not just in trial, but in reality. He would prove that humans could stand among the galaxy's greatest, not by brute force alone, but by ingenuity, courage, and determination. As the hall's shimmering doors opened to the wider palace grounds, Kale took a final look at the gathered alien warriors. Their whispers had changed tone. They no longer spoke solely of fear, but of something more complex: admiration, surprise, and a dawning understanding. Humans were not weak. Humans were unpredictable, and humans, when pushed to the edge, could achieve what others deemed impossible. Kale took a steadying breath and stepped forward, ready for the next trial, ready for the challenges that lay beyond the palace walls. The bond with the sword burned warmly in his hand, a reminder that the journey had only begun, and that every step forward was another chance to prove the strength of humanity in a galaxy that had long underestimated them. The queen moved ahead and Kale followed, his mind alert, his body ready, and his spirit unwavering. He knew the path would be perilous, yet he also knew this: humans had always faced the impossible, and time and again they had endured, adapted, and emerged victorious. And here, on this distant world, Kale would do the same. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. Kale followed the alien queen and her warriors through the open courtyard, the sword still warm in his hand. He could feel the bond with the blade deepening, almost like it was learning him as he had learned it. Every step he took made the hum of its power stronger, and he knew that the sword was preparing him for the trials yet to come. A sudden alarm rang out, sharp and mechanical. It echoed across the palace, bouncing off the walls and towers. The queen halted and turned, her eyes narrowing. "They are here," she said quietly, her voice calm but filled with controlled urgency. "The rival faction has found us sooner than expected. Kale, the trial is no longer just a test. The threat is real." The alien warriors around him stiffened, forming ranks immediately. Their armor gleamed and their weapons hummed with energy. Kale studied them for a moment. They were strong, well-trained, and coordinated, but they were also predictable, and humans had a way of turning predictability against the strongest enemies. The first wave of attackers appeared over the palace walls, sleek, dark ships descending swiftly, their weapons glowing red. The rival faction's warriors poured out, striking the courtyard with precision and aggression. The alien defenders fired back, beams of energy cutting through the air, but it was clear that sheer force alone would not stop the attackers. Kale gripped the sword tighter. The heat of the bond flared, almost as if the weapon itself recognized the imminent threat. He studied the courtyard, taking in the positions of the palace towers, the walls, and the open spaces. Then he saw it, small panels and devices scattered across the ground, subtle traps left behind from centuries of palace defense. Humans could think differently. Humans could see solutions that others might overlook. "Follow my lead," Kale said quietly to the nearest alien warrior, surprising him with the calm authority in his voice. "Use the defenses, draw them in, and don't just fight, they'll overextend." With quick movements, he activated a mechanism, sending a series of panels to rise from the ground. The invading soldiers stumbled, confused, and their formations broke. Kale's eyes scanned the battlefield, and he signaled to the alien warriors to press forward in the gaps. The attackers regrouped quickly, but Kale had already calculated their rhythm. He led a small group of defenders to flank the enemy, using the palace architecture to channel their movements. The invading forces were skilled, but Kale's improvisation forced them into confusion. He ducked under a swinging barrier, rolled past a sudden blast of energy, and launched himself toward a mechanical lever that released a hidden trap. A section of the courtyard shifted, sending several invaders tumbling into a pit. The alien warriors who had doubted him earlier stared in astonishment. Kale's human unpredictability was giving them an advantage they had never expected. Even the queen's eyes widened slightly, though she quickly masked it with her usual composure. Kale did not stop. The invaders were regrouping, forming tighter lines, but he had already anticipated their movements. He ducked behind a pillar and then sprinted across the open courtyard, using the environment as a shield. A trap he had activated earlier released a series of netting devices, ensnaring several of the attackers. Kale noticed a group trying to flank the defenders from the side and shouted, "Over there! Cut them off!" The alien warriors followed, moving with precision but guided by Kale's strategy rather than their own instincts. The tide began to shift. The invaders were powerful, but they were rigid in their tactics. Kale exploited every weakness, every moment of overconfidence. He leapt onto a raised platform, swinging the sword in a wide arc. The blade emitted a pulse of energy, knocking back several attackers without harming them severely. The sword seemed to respond to his intent, amplifying his actions with its own subtle power. A group of invaders tried to rush the queen. Kale was there before they could reach her, blocking their path with the sword. He didn't strike to kill. He didn't need to, but the force of the blade alone sent them sprawling. He could see the fear in their eyes as they realized this human was not just quick and clever, but also possessed a weapon of immense power. The queen moved among her warriors, issuing commands that were precise and efficient, but she kept an eye on Kale. It was clear to her that this human was more than an ally. He was a key factor in the survival of her people in this moment. Kale noticed a group of invaders trying to climb the palace walls to gain a higher vantage point. Thinking quickly, he activated another mechanism on the courtyard floor, sending a cascade of energy barriers to block the ascent. The attackers were forced to retreat, and several were caught in the sudden collapse of a mechanical gate. Kale didn't pause. Every movement was calculated, every action deliberate, turning the enemy's aggression into their own disadvantage. The alien warriors began to whisper among themselves. "He fights differently," one said. "Not with raw strength, but with strategy, with thinking," another nodded. "Humans, they adapt. They do not follow patterns, they create them." He leapt over debris, deflected energy blasts, and guided the alien warriors through the chaos. The attackers, despite their superior numbers and firepower, were losing ground. The queen spoke again, her voice carrying clearly across the courtyard. "Hold the line, protect the palace and me." Her warriors obeyed instantly, inspired by her presence and now by Kale's leadership. Kale moved to a narrow bridge connecting two sections of the courtyard. Invaders poured forward, trying to overwhelm the defenders. Kale held his ground, swinging the sword in precise arcs that blocked attacks and pushed enemies back. He noticed a weak point in the enemy formation and signaled the alien warriors to attack there. They followed, and the invaders faltered, their lines breaking under the combined assault. A sudden explosion rocked the courtyard, sending Kale sprawling. He rolled to his feet, feeling the bond of the sword steady him. The attackers tried to regroup, but Kale had already anticipated their moves. Using a combination of traps, clever positioning, and the sword's subtle energy, he forced them into a confined space where their numbers became a liability rather than an advantage. One by one, the invaders fell back, some surrendering, others fleeing in confusion and fear. The palace courtyard, once under siege, was now held firmly by the defenders. The alien warriors looked at Kale with awe, realizing that this human had turned a desperate situation into a decisive victory. The queen approached, her eyes reflecting both relief and respect. "You have done what many of my strongest warriors could not," she said softly. "You have not only protected the palace, but demonstrated a quality rare even among my kind: ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. Humans are underestimated far too often. Perhaps it is time that changes." He had faced real danger, not just trials or tests, and he had turned it to advantage. The alien warriors who had once doubted him now moved with renewed confidence. They followed Kale's lead in securing the courtyard, preparing for any possible counterattack. Even the queen's advisors, usually cautious and critical, whispered among themselves, acknowledging that the humans' actions had saved them from disaster. Kale glanced at the palace walls, at the setting sun casting its golden light across the battleground. The courtyard was still scarred from the conflict, but the attackers had been repelled, their threat neutralized, for now. He knew that this victory was not just about brute force. It was about observation, strategy, and the willingness to take risks that others would not. Humans excelled in such moments, and Kale had proven it. The queen turned to him, placing a hand lightly on the sword. "You have earned more than respect today. You have earned trust. But remember, Kale, this war is far from over. There are forces in the galaxy that will not hesitate to exploit weakness, and they will come for both you and my people. Are you ready to continue on this path?" Around them, the alien warriors prepared for the next wave of challenges, their confidence bolstered by Kale's ingenuity and courage. The bond between human and sword had proven itself in the first real test, and Kale knew that it would only grow stronger as the trials continued. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the palace grounds, Kale stood ready. The battle had revealed one undeniable truth: humans were not to be underestimated. Where others saw weakness, Kale saw opportunity. Where others relied solely on power, he relied on thought, courage, and adaptability. And in a universe that constantly challenged them, such qualities could change the course of fate itself. Kale adjusted his grip on the sword, feeling its subtle thrum in response. He was not merely a visitor here. He was a participant in a larger story, one that would test the limits of human ingenuity and courage. And as the night settled over the palace, he knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The courtyard was quiet now, but the air still carried the echoes of the battle. Kale stood in the fading light, the sword resting lightly in his hand, its hum gentle but steady. The alien warriors moved among themselves, securing the area and tending to minor injuries, but many of their eyes were still fixed on him. He had led them through chaos, and strategy had turned the tide. Their fear had shifted into respect, but there was more to prove before the full trust of the queen's people could be earned. The queen moved toward him, her silver skin shimmering in the last rays of the sun. "Kale," she said, her voice calm but carrying authority, "you have shown courage and strategy today. But courage alone does not make a warrior a leader, nor does cleverness alone earn the respect of those who fight beside you. There are still those who doubt you. It is how we show respect and test the bond between those who protect and those they protect. Stand with honor, and they will recognize you as one of their own." He would rely on himself, on observation, and on human adaptability. The first warrior stepped forward. He was tall and heavily armored, carrying a long spear that glowed faintly with energy. His movements were precise, almost mechanical, and his eyes studied Kale like a predator calculating its prey. Kale mirrored his stance, keeping the sword steady, letting the blade hum with subtle energy. The spear thrust toward him, and Kale sidestepped, moving fluidly and avoiding the point without overcommitting. The warrior tried again, each strike fast, measured, but Kale adjusted instinctively, blocking or deflecting without panic. His movements were not powerful in the alien sense, but precise, intelligent, and effective. The warriors watching began to murmur. "He is human, yet his reflexes are uncanny," one said. Another shook his head. "And he uses his mind as much as his body. It is unsettling." On one thrust, he pivoted, allowing the spear to pass harmlessly while positioning himself to gently unbalance the attacker. The warrior stumbled slightly, then regained composure, nodding in acknowledgement. One by one, other warriors approached. Some used swords, others axes, others forms of energy weapons unfamiliar to Kale. Each time he relied on observation and adaptation, learning the style, predicting the motion, and using timing rather than strength to counter. The sword helped subtly, amplifying his instincts, but Kale understood that the skill was his own. The ritual lasted hours. Kale moved from one opponent to another, sweat on his brow, muscles tired, but his focus never wavered. The alien warriors, initially cautious and skeptical, began to change their demeanor. Their eyes showed admiration. Some began to follow his movements closely, learning, understanding, realizing that humans were not fragile or weak. They were clever, adaptable, and courageous. Finally, the last warrior approached. She was a seasoned fighter, her movements faster and more precise than anyone Kale had faced that day. Her eyes glimmered with challenge. Kale steadied his breathing. He could feel the bond with the sword responding, guiding subtly, but this fight was his. The duel began. Each strike, block, and pivot tested Kale's endurance and perception. He noticed tiny shifts in her stance, subtle changes in her breathing, and adjusted accordingly. The battle was intense, but Kale's human ingenuity allowed him to anticipate her moves, turning her speed and power into opportunities rather than threats. Finally, with a swift and precise maneuver, Kale guided her energy past him, lightly tapping her shoulder with the flat of his blade. She stepped back, surprised, and then bowed slightly in acknowledgement. The courtyard erupted in murmurs. Even the Queen's advisors whispered in astonishment. "You have proven yourself, Kale," the Queen said, her voice soft but carrying authority. "Not by overpowering, but by understanding, adapting, and respecting the skill of others. My warriors now recognize you as one of them." It was a silent acknowledgement of trust and respect, something that could not be given lightly in their culture. The Queen's eyes softened as she stepped closer. "You have bonded with the sword, earned the respect of my warriors, and proven your courage and intellect. But there is still more to learn. Leadership is not only about skill, it is about strategy, foresight, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Soon, the true test will come, and the galaxy will see the measure of humans through you." He had gained respect, yes, but he had also taken a step into a larger responsibility. A responsibility that would require courage, wisdom, and adaptability beyond what he had already shown. That night, the palace was quiet. The Queen and her warriors gathered in a hall lit by floating orbs, the sword resting gently in Kale's hand. He could feel its subtle pulse, as if the weapon itself was reflecting on the day's events. He knew the bond was growing stronger, and with it, his understanding of its power and purpose. The Queen spoke again, her voice calm and deliberate. "Tomorrow, you will accompany me to meet our allies across the desert plains. There are forces gathering, forces that will challenge not only my people but the balance of power in this sector. Your ingenuity and courage will be needed, Kale. Are you prepared for what comes next? Humans adapt and we do not give up. These lessons are as important as any trial of skill." The alien warriors who had once doubted him now moved freely around him, their eyes respectful, their manner deferential. Some still whispered among themselves, but now those whispers carried admiration rather than fear. Kale realized that humans had a way of surprising even the most disciplined and experienced beings. Their creativity, adaptability, and courage were often underestimated, and that underestimation was a strength in itself. As Kale rested that night, he reflected on the day's events. He had faced challenges that tested his skill, endurance, and mind. He had proven himself not by overpowering others, but by observing, learning, and adapting. And in doing so, he had earned the respect of an entire alien culture, something that no human had achieved before. The sword pulsed softly in his hand, a comforting reminder of the bond they shared. It was a connection that went beyond mere metal and energy. It was a recognition of potential, courage, and understanding. Kale knew that this bond would guide him in the trials to come, helping him face dangers that were still beyond the horizon. Outside the palace, the desert winds whispered against the walls, carrying the scent of distant threats. Kale understood that the peace they had achieved today was temporary. The rival faction was still out there, and the galaxy held many dangers yet unseen. But he also knew something else. Humans had a unique ability to adapt, to survive, and to turn challenges into opportunities. That ability had saved lives today and would continue to do so in the future. The Queen approached once more, placing a hand lightly on the sword. "Rest now, Kale. Tomorrow your next trial begins. You have proven courage, skill, and intelligence. But remember, leadership is tested in action, not only in trials. The true measure of a protector is how they face what comes when the stakes are highest." The true test lay ahead, where courage, intelligence, and adaptability would all be needed in equal measure. As night fully descended, Kale remained vigilant. The palace was quiet, the warriors resting, and the queen in her chambers. Yet he knew that this calm was temporary. The galaxy was vast, and threats were everywhere. But Kale also knew something crucial. Humans were capable of more than anyone expected. Their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were tools that could turn the impossible into the achievable. Kale adjusted his grip on the sword, feeling its subtle hum in his hand. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and he would meet them head-on. He would not falter, and he would not fail. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and time and again they had survived, adapted, and emerged stronger. And here, on this distant world, Kale would do the same. The morning sun rose over the desert palace, casting long, golden beams across the walls and towers. Kale stood on the upper balcony, the sword resting lightly in his hand. Its hum pulsed gently, as if sensing the anticipation in the air. Today would not be another trial of skill or observation. It would be a test of diplomacy, leadership, and courage. Kale understood that the outcome would shape the future of both humans and the alien people he had come to respect. The queen approached, her silver skin glowing softly in the dawn light. "Kale," she said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "Today we journey to the Alliance Councils. There are other leaders, other worlds, and many factions who will judge your people based on what they see. Your actions will set the tone for our partnership. We adapt, we think, and we act. That is what I will show them." The human had become a symbol, proof that courage, ingenuity, and adaptability could earn recognition across species. As they set out across the desert plains, Kale observed the shifting sands, the heat rising in waves, and the distant silhouettes of alien settlements. The journey was long, but Kale remained alert. He studied the terrain, anticipating potential dangers, bandits, rival factions, and natural hazards alike. Every step forward reinforced his human ability to adapt, to prepare, and to survive in conditions far harsher than most species were used to enduring. By midday, the Alliance Council appeared on the horizon, a series of grand spires and fortified halls that gleamed under the sun. Kale could sense the tension in the air. Leaders from multiple alien worlds gathered here, each with their own motives, ambitions, and prejudices. Humans were rare in these circles, often dismissed as weak or impulsive. Kale knew he had to prove that their species was not only capable but essential to the survival and strength of the galaxy. The delegation approached, and Kale stepped forward alongside the queen. His posture was steady, his expression calm. The alien leaders stared at him, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled skepticism. One of the counselors, a towering figure with crystalline armor, leaned forward. "You claim to speak for humans?" he asked, his voice cold and measured. "Yet this is the first I have seen of your kind. What makes you worthy of entering this council? Today you will see a species that adapts, learns, and contributes, not through intimidation, but through ingenuity and action." Kale felt the sword pulse subtly, as if reminding him that he was not alone, that the bond with the queen and her people was more than symbolic. It was a demonstration of trust and capability. The council proceedings began. Each leader presented their demands, ambitions, and concerns. Kale listened intently, analyzing patterns, recognizing motivations, and preparing responses that would satisfy reason without causing conflict. When it was his turn, he spoke clearly and deliberately. He explained the value of human ingenuity, recounting the events in the palace, the trials, the battle, and the ways humans could adapt to unforeseen challenges. He did not boast. He spoke with calm authority, showing respect for the other species while asserting that humans were capable allies. One counselor scoffed, dismissing him lightly. "You speak boldly, human, yet one day in a palace with a sword does not prove the worth of a species across a galaxy. Today, my actions protected the queen, coordinated her warriors, and repelled an attack that would have overwhelmed them otherwise. Humans may be underestimated, but we learn quickly, we adapt, and we do not falter under pressure. That is the value we bring." Kale could see the surprise on many faces. Aliens who had doubted humans now reconsidered. Actions, after all, spoke louder than assumptions. Kale's calm, precise recounting of strategy and courage left little room for doubt. The queen stepped forward, her voice strong and deliberate. "You see before you a human who has not only bonded with my sword and survived trials, but who has earned the respect of my warriors. This is not mere luck or coincidence. It is the result of courage, intellect, and adaptability." Humans are more capable than many assume, and they can be trusted as allies. Yet it is also a recognition of the spirit that humans possess, the willingness to face the unknown, adapt, and endure. That is rare in any species. The respect of the warriors, the queen, and now the council was not granted lightly. It was earned through action, intelligence, and courage. The day continued with discussions, negotiations, and demonstrations. Kale participated actively, offering insights into strategy, logistics, and problem-solving. Whenever a counselor doubted humans, Kale responded with clear reasoning and practical examples. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. Skepticism turned into curiosity, and curiosity began to evolve into recognition. Humans were not only observers, they were contributors, thinkers, and capable partners. As the council meeting drew to a close, the Queen stood beside Kale. "You have proven yourself, Kale, not only to my people but to the galaxy's leaders," she said softly. "They now understand what we have known. Humans are capable, intelligent, and courageous. That understanding will shape the future of this alliance." His goal had been to act decisively, protect the Queen, and demonstrate the truth about his species. And now the result was evident. Humans would be seen differently here, respected not just for physical strength but for intellect, courage, and adaptability. The council adjourned, and Kale stepped outside into the cool desert evening. The sand stretched endlessly, golden in the light of the setting sun. The palace warriors gathered around him, their expressions no longer doubtful but full of respect. Some of them approached and shook his hand, a gesture of honor and acknowledgement. Others simply nodded, their eyes reflecting awe. The Queen joined him on the balcony, her gaze distant as she watched the horizon. "Kale," she said, "the galaxy is vast and threats will continue to rise. But today you have shown that humans are more than underestimated creatures. They are thinkers, leaders, and allies who can change outcomes when trusted. Humans have always faced doubt and danger, but when given the chance, we adapt, we endure, and we succeed. That is who we are. Your courage, intelligence, and adaptability have earned a place here, not as a visitor, but as a protector and partner." Now he was part of something greater, an alliance that could reshape the balance of power across worlds. The desert winds whispered around them as Kale stood tall, the sword humming gently in response. He thought of Earth, of humanity's resilience and resourcefulness, and he understood that this was not just his victory, it was a reflection of what humans could achieve anywhere in the galaxy. As night fell and stars emerged over the palace, the Queen turned to Kale. "Rest now," she said. "Tomorrow brings new challenges, but you have proven that humans can rise to meet them, and that knowledge will inspire not just my people, but all those who witness it." The sword's pulse echoed in his hand, a quiet affirmation of the bond and the journey he had undertaken. He knew the path ahead would not be easy, but humans had always faced impossible odds. And time and again they had endured, adapted, and emerged stronger. Here on a distant world, Kale had not only earned respect, he had changed perceptions. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were recognized as intelligent, courageous, and adaptable, capable of shaping the course of events on a galactic scale. Kale lifted his gaze to the stars, feeling the vastness of the universe around him. Somewhere out there, challenges awaited, threats lurked, and new trials would arise. But he knew one thing with certainty: humans would meet them head-on. They would observe, learn, and adapt. They would survive. They would triumph. And Kale, human and determined, would be at the forefront, carrying the sword, earning trust, and proving to the galaxy that humanity's courage and ingenuity could not be denied. The desert palace stood silent, the stars reflecting in the sword's polished surface. Kale's hand was steady, his resolve unwavering. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, and they would never forget it. Humans had finally earned their place among the stars.